Hello and welcome to the Paal15 Podcast. My name is Jesse Muller, Global Head of Strategy at Paal15, and I'm excited to be joined by another very special guest on today's show. Edie van the Berge has been in the B2B tech business for many years, starting as a tech consultant, doing the actual designing and deploying of business technology solutions, before moving into roles that would focus more on building partnerships in the ecosystem. And his career has included senior roles at several of the world's leading technology companies. He even did a 2-year stint at our firm, Paal15, developing business and consulting for our customers. For the last 3 years, he's been the EMEA Director of Partnerships at Insight, driving the partnership business forward, building channel programs, engaging with strategic partners like Microsoft, AWS, and Google, to align and deploy solutions successfully in the market. Edie, great to see you again, and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's dive into the meat of things. You're now currently EMEA Director of Partnerships and Insight, but before we go into what you do there, can you tell us a bit of your background and where you come from, how you got into this business?
Like you were saying, I've been in the technology industry for probably close to 25 years. Started out as in very technical roles and then kind of rolled into pre-sales and then into management, partner management. And I started with Insight about 6 years ago, so 6th anniversary coming up already. My first role there was leading the channel business for Insight across EMEA. So I did that for about 3 years. And then 2.5 years ago, I actually stepped into the role of leading some of the partnerships for EMEA with Insight. Now, currently, I'm responsible for the AWS relationship across EMEA, but also responsible for a couple of the teams that we have in what we call the Northern Europe region. So that's Netherlands, Belgium, and Sweden. And those teams basically consist of partner managers as well as some of the technology pre-sales that are aligned to some of our partners. And what we do is basically build those relationships, build plans, business plans, and execute, and that entails a lot of things. Building out go-to-market, making sure that we get investments from both our business as well as the partner business, and basically drive to joint success. So that's basically the goal.
Partnership is key to your business, right? Insight is a partnership business, I would say, basically, because a lot of it is about reselling technology and wrapping around all kinds of services and solutions around it. But is there what is the sort of strategic value that partnerships hold for you specifically and in your line of business within Insight?
Insight used to be mainly focused on resale. Well, that's still a very important part of our business. It's very much around trying to become the AI first solution integrator, as we call it. Looking at some of the acquisitions that we've done over the last couple of years include technology consulting firms around application development, AI, but also very specific to some vendors, for example. So we did an acquisition of Sada, which was probably the world's leading Google partner. So we're putting all of these different components together to become that global solution integrator. So why is partnering important? Even if you go through a transition like that, obviously the resale business is still really important to us. That's our heritage, and it is still the majority of our business. But what we can see where the world is heading, it is all about what value do you actually add in the ecosystem, and that is when partnering is maybe even more important, because it's not just about using the technology of some of those partners. And learning to use the technology, but it's also how do you actually jointly go to market in the end, and that goes all the way down from building a value proposition together to actually having joint conversations with the customer. So we have quite a few situations where we actually go into a customer, for example, with Microsoft and Insight, or AWS and Insight.
Are you personally involved with those customers as well, or is it something you're watching more from a helicopter view happening across the EMEA region?
That's a very good question. Obviously, I can't be involved in everything, but there are situations where I actually do get involved, and it depends on the type of client. It could be because it's something that we're doing for the first time with some of those customers. So I do tend to get involved. And what I think is really important, partnerships is often seen as a function of relationship management, but it's actually a really critical part of the sales organization. And it's also important for us to still continue to have those conversations with clients to understand what's really happening on the ground. And not just looking at it from, oh, this partner has this great new technology and this is where they're saying the world is heading. It's important to kind of keep your feet on the ground and understand what is really important to clients.
Can you share a specific example of a successful partnership that brought sort of success to a customer in that sense?
One good example is very recent. So we have one customer where we're starting to build a solution that's called rapid AI prototyping. What we see is there's a big challenge with customers that are able to find ROI in some of their AI initiatives. And this is the idea is all around helping customers in a very short time frame to build an actual working prototype. And we're trying to do that across the hyperscalers. So we've done a lot of that with Microsoft, and we're now doing the same for AWS. Very recently, we were in a conversation with a customer specifically around that topic. So I had to get involved, or I wanted to get involved, just to understand, how do we do this in the right way for the client, and then build that joint proposition with AWS and Insight.
Cool. I can imagine your background being very helpful in that as well, so you can sort of understand also the low-level mechanics of those things, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. I still get super excited about technology and how it can actually solve problems. I maybe get too involved sometimes, but I think if you want to make business decisions, sometimes you need to know a little bit more than just a high level and the promise that you get from some of the technology providers.
Do you notice then that there's a difference between partnerships that you're building? Is there a difference between partnering with larger vendors or smaller vendors, or with other maybe SIs or system integrators or developers?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it also depends on your existing position with some of those technology providers, right? So Insight has been a very long-standing partner with Microsoft, for example. We obviously have a very different type of relationship and a much more mature relationship with Microsoft compared to some of the other vendors. We've been working with AWS for probably 3 to 4 years now. It's a very different type of engagement. The way they operate is very different. And obviously our position is very different. So you need to view and take the approach more systematically. So what we do, and that's why I think any relationship, you need to figure out where the win-win is, and then build out the plan from there. And it's not just about the partnership plan. And sometimes some of those bigger vendors, they will ask you, oh, you need to give us a business plan, for example. But you really need to have your own business plan internally. So what do you want to get out of this relationship?
So win-win, obviously great. Are there any other essential elements that you see that you need to include in a partnership before you can actually make it successful, or before you can even start?
So we use a framework to manage the lifecycle of a partnership, and it all starts with the market opportunity, starting to build the alignment with the right stakeholders on both sides. Then you actually start to quantify, what does that opportunity mean for us? You find out the win-win. You put the process in place to manage the partnership. And I think a lot of businesses today, actually, I think the field of just partnership management is quite immature. There aren't a lot of organizations that actually have a process around that, and you manage the life cycle. That you actually every now and then you need to have that conversation to say, oh, what we actually were setting out to do, are we still heading in the right direction? Do our goals still align? So from when you start a partnership, a lot of organizations just jump into it. They see the opportunity, but you also need to be a bit critical. What's the actual business value going to be in the long run? And are you going to be able to manage a relationship? And I can tell you, a relationship with some of those bigger vendors, they will take up a lot of energy. So sometimes I think, I think sometimes smaller organizations underestimate the level of effort it actually takes to build a strong partnership.
you say you're using a framework. Are there other methods that you're using to make sure that you keep engaging in the right way? Is there ways to ensure that, even if you're a smaller organization, or just let's say I'm working at an ISV and I'm just starting to partnership with some of these bigger organizations out there? How would you approach that?
Well, I think you need to, we're starting to do that more and more as well. So it's not just about, you build a joint solution and you go to market with it. You also need to market inside some of those organizations that you work with. So for example, if we work with one of the hyperscalers, we will actually start to market towards some of those sellers as well to create awareness. So there's lots and lots of different angles that you need to kind of cover to make it successful. But I think one of the most important things is it is still a people's business, right? You can have all the frameworks you want, but you still need to have people to people relationships. Trust is really important. And even at the personal level with some of the people that you work with, you need to understand what their motivators are. Sometimes it's how they are commissioned. It's as simple as that sometimes. You need to be super clear about, even you can have this big partnership, which is great, but in the end, it's all about the people you work with and making sure that you understand each other's position and how you can help each other.
Is there a partnership that provided sort of unexpected insights for you, that you thought, hey, this is starting like this. I expect this to be going this direction, but it suddenly turned out to be something else, or something completely better, or maybe worse, but probably hopefully better. But
what happens sometimes is when you start to build those partnerships and you start to do, you start to do certain activities and you start to do the right things, the right things happen. So often what happens is there is some sort of unexpected opportunity that comes up that you didn't think about before. And that could actually completely change and accelerate the partnership. And that's another important thing. I mean, you can build partnerships plans, whatever you want, but in the end, it's all about actually finding those 1 or 2 or 3 first good opportunities. And that'll always start to accelerate the partnership. So not necessarily, this is super unexpected, but generally what you see is when you start to do those right things and the stars start to align a little bit in the partnership, and you find the first couple of customers, and that's what really helps accelerate.
Do you guys start from, do you at Insight, or from your experience, do you always start with the opportunity first and partner from there? Or do you work the other way around, that you think, hey, this is super key technology that we're going to need to partner around for the next few years, and we're going to build opportunities out from there? Because that, I think, is an interesting, it's probably a different dynamic involved in both of those.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I mean, at Insight, we have partnerships with dozens, hundreds of different companies. They could be distries, they could be technology providers, but they could also be other solution integrators with a very specific focus that we partner with. But from a technology side, it really depends. Sometimes it's more because there's very short-term demand from some of the customers, and they just want to transact something with us. So, we go into what we call a partnership, which is more transactional. But we also have very strategic partnerships where you start from the actual market opportunity, and then you start to work your way backwards. For example, just thinking that you always need to build a relationship with one of the hyperscalers is obviously not true. You can be very successful just focusing on one. But we've actually decided that we want to focus on all 3 so we can actually be that solution integrator. But then you actually need to build a business case beforehand. And the business case also evolves, right? You build a case, opportunities come up in the market, or you run into a client that needs a certain type of solution. And you actually figure out, this could actually be a solution that fits with more of our customers, and then you start to build an actual proposition around that, and you actively go to market with it. So it depends. Not all partnerships are created equal.
So from your experience, what are sort of the frequent mistakes organizations make when building partnerships?
I think not being clear about what the win-win is, or just going into it from the opportunity perspective. And it's very simple. No one is doing you a favor, right? It's about actually doing business. So there's no free meals. So at some point it needs to be, it's doing business. So you need to be super clear about what it is that you're trying to achieve. And make sure you stick to it. You build a plan. You continuously monitor feedback. And I mean, sometimes you decide this is not working and you need to scrap it. And sometimes you need to start to overinvest.
To wrap it up, are there sort of top 3 actionable tips or tricks that you have that you could provide to, or strategies that you think, hey, you need to implement these if you want to be successful when building partnerships?
I'm very process oriented, so you need to have some sort of process in place if you want to manage a partnership, especially if you start to manage multiple partnerships. You need to make sure that there's some sort of process in place. Making sure that you align with all the stakeholders, you have the right stakeholders aligned in both companies, but be clear on the win-win, manage progress, feedback loops, all of that kind of basic stuff. But what you see often is that in partnerships, it's just viewed as a kind of relationship management, which is not. It's an integral and it's a really important part of a business. Win-win, as I said, is very key. But also, don't be afraid to review and just be critical sometimes. You can't be everybody's friend, so sometimes you just need to. Most people that are successful know when to say no, not when to say yes. And in the end, it's all about people. Make sure that you partner with the people you think you can trust.
So, Edie, do you see common pitfalls in the go-to-market when you build these partnerships? Right, there's probably a lot of difficult processes that you need to go through. All right, you've set up the partnership, you've aligned on the goals. Now you need to bring something to market together. What are sort of common pitfalls that you see happening in that part, in that process?
Well, yeah. So first of all, it's not always clear that you're actually aiming for the right or the same thing or the same set of clients. So, for example, some of the partners want to be super vertical and very specific, whereas others, their solution might not lend itself to do that. But I think what I've seen, at least over the last 2 to 3 years, is that a lot of the go-to-markets are the same. There's not a lot of differentiation. And you do not always need to differentiate because your solution is so unique, but you do need to be super clear about what do you want to achieve and who do you then target, how to best target them. And what I see often that's missing from a go-to-market is actually targeting the partner and the stakeholders within the partner that you're trying to build that relationship with. Because you might think, we've built something amazing. But not everyone in that organization will see it. And if you need to build your profile within those organizations. So it's a critical piece to not miss when you do the go-to-market. But generally speaking, it's what we've seen is most successful is trying. You need to do the basics, on the go-to-market and have all of the kind of the basic setup that you would need, but try something different.
All right, that's all we have for today, Edie. It's been a pleasure to have you. Thank you again very much for joining us on the show.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the invite.
Yeah, you're welcome. As always, a big thank you goes to our viewers and our listeners. If you've enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe to our channels for future shows. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and obviously on our website, paal15.com. Cheers and see you next time.